Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at this motherboard. This is the ASUS Tuf Gaming B850M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. I think that's the full name. It'll be at the bottom of the screen if it's not. This is a fantastic board, micro ATX form factor from the people over at ASUS, and as a lot of you probably know already, the Tuf branding basically is kind of like a mid-range or sort of middle upper range for the ASUS product stack, and along with that comes some fantastic features, some great branding. So if you want to kind of mix and match and get some other Tuf gaming peripherals to join your PC for that nice aesthetic, such as keyboards, mice, coolers, you name it, there's basically something for everybody. This should be a great platform. Now, this is a micro ATX board, which in general I'm not a massive fan of, I'll be honest with you. I do much prefer ATX boards for the flexibility. But just because this is a micro ATX board doesn't mean it skimps on features or power. But just because this is micro ATX doesn't mean it doesn't have both of those things in absolute spades. So in today's video, we're going to go through, do an unboxing, talk about the motherboard features, do a tour of all of the connectivity, etc. And then we'll discuss whether or not this might be suitable for your next PC gaming build. Now actually as well, one of the reasons why I'm not overly keen on micro ATX is because of the form factor. I like the boards, and generally they come in at a slightly cheaper price, and obviously they're slightly more compact, so it doesn't take up so much room on your desk. But when it comes to cases, there aren't a great many micro ATX cases, which I really like. A lot of them skimp out on things like a little bit of room at the bottom for your graphics card, so you're a little bit limited in that fashion. But there is a micro ATX case coming very soon to the market from a certain company, which I'm not allowed to mention because it's under embargo, so I can't give you any information about it whatsoever. Those of you that know will kind of know from that little hint. That should be coming on the channel very soon, and potentially might see a board like this in it. Anyway, that's for another video. Let's take a look at this board and see what we actually get. We'll take a look at the packaging, etc., and see what it's all about. And I should say before we get started, this was actually sent in to us for review purposes by a very kind member of our YouTube community, Dom. Thank you so much. It will be going back to them after, and it has actually got their processor in already for them to start their build. They're still umming and ahhing about graphics cards and things like that, so yeah, they've let me use it in the meantime just to take a quick look. And actually, I've got to say, I'm pretty impressed. But let's get on and take a look at what we actually get. So in terms of packaging, obviously this is going to be pretty obvious for ASUS customers. It's the typical Tuf gaming packaging. As you can see, this is the Tuf Gaming B850M-Plus Wi-Fi 7. So that gives you a hint to the connectivity. Obviously Wi-Fi 7, the BE standard. It supports AI features, PCI Express Gen 5. You also got HDMI support, Dolby DTS support for the audio, Wi-Fi 7 as we mentioned, Aurora Sync support, and it's based around the AMD B850 chipset, if that wasn't already obvious. On the back of the box goes over some of the kind of key features which we've already mentioned really. PCI Express Gen 5 probably being the main one. Easy DIY, also BOS flashback support, and the connectivity in terms of 2.5 gigabit Ethernet and also Wi-Fi 7 and also Bluetooth 5.4, which is nice. So all the bases are covered. And when it comes to the Wi-Fi, in the UK, we've got a weird situation where the 6 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi 7 isn't really ratified yet properly. So some routers have it, some don't, but this supports 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, which is the normal band, and also the 6 gigahertz for Wi-Fi 7 speeds at their best performance. Let's take a look at what else we get in terms of accessories. So obviously, in terms of connectivity, there is a magnetic antenna from ASUS, and also it's got a nice push fit connectors, not the screw-on ones, so that's great. We like those a lot. There are two SATA cables if you wish to set up some hard drives or some older SATA SSDs. That may come in handy. Also, when it comes to M.2s, you get a couple of extra M.2 pads for different size drives, and also some mounting hardware, screws and standoffs. In terms of paperwork, you get a quick start guide, no real user manual on this, which is a real shame. A safety information, some nonsense about ASUS web storage if you perhaps want to use that. And also you get the sticker book. So these are the ASUS Tuf stickers, which you can adorn to your rig or maybe put over things on here. There's one to cover the BIOS battery, there's ones that can go over the chipset, etc. Yeah, knock yourselves out. Now there isn't actually an I/O shield included in there because it is integrated, which is nice. We'll take a full look at the connectivity on the back later on in the video. Let's now take a tour of the board itself, and we'll start off with the actual overall aesthetics. Now if you're into the ASUS Tuf gaming branding, which you probably are if you're watching this video, it doesn't disappoint. It's got all of the usual features which we're used to seeing, so predominantly a black board and heat sinks, hints of grey as well, and also a very small splash of the kind of orangey yellow colour. I think it's more of an orange, but yeah, whatever it is, but it's very muted, so that's great. This should fit in very nicely with pretty much any builds. In terms of the heat sinks, massive heat sinks, the VRM on here is pretty substantial as well. So we've got 14 plus 2 plus 1 setup, all of which are using 80 amp chokes. So you've got 14 for the V-Core, you've got 2 for the SoC and 1 miscellaneous. The miscellaneous one generally is for kind of driving the onboard graphics, that sort of thing. But yeah, very nice power platform there. So depending on what processor you want to use, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. Also the heatsink on the top there as well, which kind of hides the connectivity at the top. So you've got 2 EPS connectors there, so for your 8-pin CPU, so that gives you a hint of the kind of power that it can take, which is again excellent. You may not want to do that if it's a smaller build, micro ATX, sometimes quieter, smaller medium machine, but if you want to go to town and really throw some power at it, you certainly can do with that VRM solution. So moving along further, obviously we've got our AM5 socket here in the middle, so this is going to be supporting the latest and greatest processors. Pretty much anything you want to put on there is going to be absolutely fine. In a slightly unusual position, just tucked in here next to the heatsink, there is a 4-pin PWM header, which is designated for your AIO pump. Slightly unusual to see it there. Normally you traditionally would see the CPU fan header there, but there's an AIO pump header there, so you can take advantage of that. There are some more CPU headers over on this side. So you've got 2 there, CPU and CPU optional. So if you're using a CPU cooler like a tower with 2 fans on it, you can plug them both in individually. Or if you want to, you can configure that in the BOS so it can be used for a system fan or pump header, or essentially pretty much anything you want. In between the fan headers, we've got the 4 RAM slots here. Now this board will support up to DDR5 8000 megatransfers per second speeds. So that is pretty incredible. In terms of maximum capacity, clearly with RAM as it is at the moment, if you're watching this when the video goes out, RAM is scarce and extremely expensive. So the chances of you populating all 4 slots is probably unlikely, but realistically 128 gigs of RAM, maybe 256 depending on the configuration. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely fine if you can afford it, obviously, or if you can actually locate it. Moving across, so here is another slightly unusual situation. So we've got all of our ARGB headers here in this top corner. So these are the 5-volt 3-pin ARGB, 3 of those in total, and that is it. There's no 12-volt RGB and no other locations on the board, so all of your RGB is going to be connected up in this top area. Moving down, we've got the normal 24-pin power connector. Underneath that, USB front panel connector, so this is your Type C. This one is rated at 10 gigabits per second, and underneath that you've got your USB Type A front panel connection. Those are going to be rated at 5 gigabits per second. Now before we take a look at the rest of the I/O connectivity on the bottom, let's take a look at the PCI Express and the M.2 solutions. So we'll start off with PCI Express. Now obviously the top slot is going to be predominantly for your graphics cards, for a lot of you out there I think. This is PCI Express Gen 5 x 16 fully wired, and also has this really nice quick release section here, so nice and easy to take out your graphics card or install it. I really do like that solution. It's very elegant but very simple. Works very well. I've had this on a few boards now, and yeah, it's excellent. I do like it a lot, and it's worlds better than the previous little clips that were on the top there, which had a habit of breaking off when you stabbed at them with the screwdriver. Don't do that. Get one of these instead. It's much, much better. PCI Express is very limited on this because obviously it's a micro ATX board, so there's not a lot of room to fill it, but we do also have at the bottom here a PCI Express Gen 4 slot. This is a ×1 slot, so perhaps you could put in there maybe a capture card or possibly some other networking device should you wish to. Choice is entirely up to you, and it is available should you wish to use it. Next we'll take a look at the M.2 solution. 3 slots on this board, which is pretty nice. So one at the bottom, one in the middle there, and one at the top. Top one, PCI Express Gen 5 ×4 from the CPU. Bottom one is going to be PCI Express Gen 4x4, also from the CPU. Now, depending on your CPU, potentially those may change to ×2 for the bottom slot. The top one should still be always either PCI Express Gen 4x4 or 5x4, depending again on the CPU. The bottom slot is from the chipset, and that is also PCI Express Gen 4x4. The heatsink covering it is a little bit of a strange one. 4 screws to undo it, so you have to undo for both slots, which is a little bit of a pain really, especially if you don't want to disturb one of your existing drives. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain. I wish those were quick release, or basically they cut it down the middle, so 2 screws did one, 2 screws did the other. I think that would be a more elegant solution. Let me know what you think in the comments. Potentially, I would be tempted to maybe get a cutting device of some sort, or Dremel or whatever, and just score it down there and snap it in half, and just use individual ones. Comes pre-applied with thermal pads on there as well, so that's absolutely fine. But yeah, would have liked to have seen that either quick release or just 2 separate covers. Let me know what you think. Moving on to the rest of the I/O. So on the side here, we've got some side firing SATA ports. There's 4 of those in total. Underneath that, you've got your front panel connections, so things like your power switch, reset button, all that kind of stuff. Next up, a slightly unusual one, there is a USB 2.0 header, but it's just a single width one, rather than your traditional kind of block connector. So it's just a single width one. So in effect, you've got 3 connections. So a double one on the main block and a single one there. Next to that, for some reason, they've got the COM port, which I don't think anybody uses these days. Let me know if you do. If you use a COM port, I'd be very interested to know. I don't think anyone is going to answer that. So I would have preferred to have either removed the COM port and had 2 dedicated USB headers. Yeah, slightly strange. Anyway, moving along, fan headers. So we've got another 2 fan headers down here. So that gives us, I believe, 6 total. There is the AIO header. You've got the CPU and CPU optional. You've got another chassis fan header here, which I didn't show you earlier, next to the power input. And then you've got the 2 extra ones at the bottom there. I guess technically the CPU one, you could kind of amalgamate the 2 into one because it's like the CPU header. Plenty of connections, I think, for most people. Then you've got your front panel audio connection. Now the audio on this is using Realtek ALC 1220p, which is actually pretty nice, and also supports DTS surround sound, all that kind of stuff. So it's awesome. Also got your BIOS battery there, and underneath that there's a debug section. Those aren't actually CMOS reset pins. The CMOS reset is actually on the back of the I/O, which I think we'll take a look at next. Now I'm not too sure how this video is going so far. It's probably got a lot of cuts in it. The builders are in next door, and also I've got cats driving me mad by the window trying to get either in or out. Anyway, let's move on to the rear I/O and see what that's all about. Now actually, because this is the B850 chipset and also it is micro ATX, so there's less lanes being shared around on slots, the rear I/O is pretty decent. So first of all, we've got our television or monitor outputs. Sorry, brain's going now. So you've got a DisplayPort output and also an HDMI. Now that's obviously going to be used for if you're using a CPU with integrated graphics. If you're using something like a 7500F, obviously no onboard graphics, so those are going to be disabled. If you're using a 8600G or that sort of thing, then you can use those ports should you wish to, with varying degrees of resolution available. For the DisplayPort, it's probably going to be higher than the HDMI. HDMI I think tops out 4K 60. Next we've got the USB ports. So the USB 2, USB 2.0, you've got 4 ports there, one of which is the BIOS flashback port. You can use that as a normal USB port anyway, but just when you're trying to flash the BIOS, that's the port you should use. So those are all on there, that's great. Next, we've got the 2.5 gigabit LAN, so that's the Realtek RTL 8125G, I think it is. So yeah, 2.5 gigabit, and backwards compatible 10100, etc. Then surrounding that area, you've got the color-coded green ports. That is going to be USB type A. Those are 10 gigabit per second. So it's nice to have some faster ports there. Then you've got your USB type C, 20 gigabits per second. Next up, we've got 4 USB type A's, and those are the blue color-coded ones. So that's going to mean that is 5 gigabits per second. So yeah, a decent selection of USB ports on there altogether. We're looking at 12 ports in total. I think that is going to be fine for most people. Even with the amount of USB stuff that I hook up to my PC, that would be fine, and I'd still have some in reserve, so that is awesome. Wi-Fi 7 connections, so again, the push fit connections, awesome stuff. Again, 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz, and also Bluetooth 5.4 available there as well. Then we've got our BIOS flashback button, and also there is a CMOS reset button as well. So we couldn't find one on the board, and that's because they've moved it to the back. Probably because there was nowhere for them to physically put it, because it is pretty crammed in here. So yeah, nice and easy to access it on the back. So if you dial in some settings on your motherboard in terms of overclocking or whatever it is, boom, press the button, reset the BIOS back to the factory defaults of the current version you're on. It doesn't reset it to a previous BIOS version, it just resets the settings in the existing version that you've got installed. Then you've got your audio, so again, ALC 1220p chipset. That is going to be giving you DTS surround compatibility effectively. Would have liked to have seen some more ports on there and possibly a SpeedIF, but I think it's fine. So you've got 3 ports on there, you've got your microphone, you've got your headphones and your line level. So yeah, that is absolutely fine. So overall, yeah, I think this is a great board. I actually really like ASUS motherboards. ASUS and MSI for me are pretty much top ranking for me at the moment. Gigabyte probably next, and then ASRock tailing off towards the bottom, unfortunately, as things are at the moment. I think ASUS are always going to be the kind of the premium and like the premier brand. And unfortunately, you do pay for the privilege. So if you're going to buy this retail at the time of recording, which is the beginning of March 2026, you're looking the best part of £180 for this, which is a lot of money. But there is a lot going on abroad at the moment. Prices are just skyrocketing. Everything's gone a little bit crazy. Realistically, you should see this street prices probably about 150 to 180. You should see it a little bit less. Availability is going to be the key thing. If they're available, they'll be cheaper. If their stock is getting scarce, then prices are going to go up, as tends to be the case. But overall, I think this is a really nice looking board. Again, I do love the Tuf gaming boards. I've got one in my own rig for video editing. I've had many before over the years that we've had the channel, and previous to that as well. I really like them, and obviously Dom likes them as well, which is why he's gone out and got this one himself and got his CPU ready for his build. Again, micro ATX isn't always my cup of tea, but there is some kind of light glimmer on the horizon with the new case which is coming out, which kind of solves a lot of problems that I had with micro ATX form factor. So I can't wait to see what that case is like, and hopefully we'll get a micro ATX board in there and do a build, and that might even end up being my daily driver. Micro ATX, weird. Anyway, there you go. That's been the ASUS Tuf Gaming B850M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi 7. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content like this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe, and if you do that, don't forget to hit the chime notification. I think that's going to wrap this one up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.